Special Committee on Election Integrity. I appreciate everybody being here today. We have in front of us today House Bill 270, which we heard for, I don't know, maybe 3 hours the other day. It was before us earlier, was that last Thursday. We passed the bill out. It was in the rules, and the minority whip Wilkinson came to myself and Representative Chairman Shaw Blackman and asked us to make one change and that he could support the bill and would encourage the same. So let me explain to you briefly what the bill originally did. Then I'm going to ask Chairman Shaw to explain the one change that you have in front of you. We'll be working off of LC 280142S. LC 280142S. As you may recall, the bill simply was a recommendation by the Association of County Commissioners and a bipartisan working group that they put together to change the date by which we tell Georgians they need to have their absentee ballot application in, so that it was actually a date where one could really fulfill the order and get it back to them in time where they could vote. I think the way I put it was it's almost misleading the way our current law works. You could request a ballot properly, and there's no way it could be get back to you in time for you to vote, as was testimony we heard on Thursday. That was the underlying bill that we passed just the other day. The change that was requested by Whip Wilkinson, I will recognize Chairman Shaw and ask him to explain that change, which the bill basically does the same thing, just makes a slight adjustment in how we do that. So Chairman Shaw Blackman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, as we heard the other day that ACCG brought the original language forward, but I think they were comfortable with the suggested change. And as you mentioned, other members had brought it up either during committee or after that. And this was an agreed change that would adjust this from an application date deadline, which before we had an issuance date deadline, and that application deadline would be that second Friday, which is the 10th day prior to the election. And then it would codify the 3-day rule such that 3 business days would be allowed for those applications to be mailed. And in short, Mr. Chairman, that's what it does. I do have one slight amendment on line 29 that would read, instead of absentee ballot applications must be received, it would be absentee by mail ballot applications must be received.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, that's simply how we define that term in the code. That's why you're clarifying.
It is correct. That is correct.
Makes
it is
no substantive change.
Consistent with how we refer to that in other sections
of the code.
Of the code, yes.
All
Sir.
right. Questions for Chairman Blackman from the committee? I see no questions. All right. Is there a 15? Is that you, Chairwoman Rich? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman Blackman. I do have a question. I'm sorry, I just came in and I did not have a chance to look up this code section that's referenced. It's a new reference, OCGA 21-2-385.
I can answer that for you. If Chairman Blackman doesn't want to, that's simply the code section that allows for emergency use of an absentee ballot if you're in the hospital.
Okay, so that addresses that issue too then.
We touched on that the other day. There were some questions from other members, and we want to make sure that that procedure is still in place if there's emergency.
Perfect. Thank you.
Am I right on that, Chairman Blackman? Okay. Chairman Smyra.
Mr. Chairman, on the emergency clause, does that cover anyone that has an emergency within the time frame that's been established? So when is the drop? When is the drop line? When is the drop dead date in terms of a person being able to have an emergency and then request an absentee ballot?
Election day. The registrar can still bring it to you in the hospital on election day.
So therefore, if that amendment is adopted, you could still be able to vote by absent by absentee ballot if it's brought to you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They bring it to you. And Whip Wilkinson didn't even ask for that, but y'all talked about it and we put it in there for you.
Well,
I think it was Representative Burrs that maybe mentioned that the most.
and one other thing, was there any discussion, because I'm not privy to all the discussions that been had, was there anything in there dealing with the days certain in terms of 5? We had some concerns about the timing of it, and it was 10 days. And then we talked about a day certain with 5 days, and then we talked about 7 to 10 days. So what is it now, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the days?
Sure. The day you have to get your request in is the Friday, second Friday
Second
before the
Friday.
election. And then this says that they have to get it back to you within 3 business days, which would be the Wednesday before the election.
Okay. Those are the things that's still weighing on me, and I know this is a good faith effort, and I believe we're almost there. I think we're much closer. So I wanna say that in light of where we were early on and the feedback that I got back from my hometown and from others around the state, but we've come some ways, and I think because the only thing we're trying to do is to protect everyone and make sure that everybody has an opportunity. So I just want to say publicly that we've come some ways in terms of what we're trying to get to. So I want to say that to the full committee and to you as chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Samari. Other members, is that you, Chairman Martin?
Well,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, this might go into discussion if we get a motion on the bill. I had some.
You can make
discussion I moved LC 280142S do pass.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. Chairman Martin.
Thank you. I just, I was able to speak with an election board member this weekend. And one of the things I think we need to enumerate here or elaborate on is this will allow our elections boards, not the boards, the election directors and the staff of the lady from Houston County to concentrate that last week of the election at getting in and taking care of the ballots that have been submitted timely and still give everybody the opportunity to vote. This person articulated to me that when they were trying to, he called it a bit like a controlled chaos of trying to get ballots out up till that Friday while they're getting a lot of ballots in. And so I think this does a lot toward protecting the integrity of those that have voted by mail before so that those ballots can be handled with a good chain of custody. And it really helps the people, all of the people that have prepared and done it a little bit sooner, and their ballot will be better taken care of according to this individual.
I agree. Representative Burnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the part that says no later than 5 p.m., I just have a question because of the way the mail runs. Are we saying that somebody will be there to receive it so they'll know that it was there before 5 p.m.? Like in Clayton County, their mail goes to the central office part of it, and then they disseminate it back. So they only get mail that one day. Are they going to go out at like on election day and go to the post office twice to
Well,
make sure they have all the applications?
of course, on election day, if it had not been received on election day, you'd be too late, just like you would in the current law.
No, I said like election day.
Oh, like election day.
Uh-huh.
This requires them to receive them by 5 o'clock p.m. Now, how Board of Election Superintendents are going to interpret that, but if you get it to them by 5 p.m., they're supposed to send you a ballot.
Okay. And what happens if they don't send it back within those 3 days?
They violated Georgia law.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Other questions from committee members? Representative Douglas, what number are you? 13? Representative Douglas.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question on line 36 and 37 where it says no absentee by mail ballot shall be issued or mailed after the close of business. What about the spoiled ballots that are received? Can those ballots be reissued, or can those ballots be mailed with this same language?
So you've already, if you have put an application and already received a ballot, there's a whole different area of law that covers the ballots themselves. This only deals with the applications.
Okay.
So if the ballot has come back and there's a problem with it, as you know, there is a process that the Board of Elections go by to contact that person and give them the chance to fix what the problem is. This is not touching that process, which is already in place at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Other questions from committee members? Chairman Smyer.
One other question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The section that deals with what the 10-day rule was, and under the substitute, it said no later than the second Friday.
What line are you reading? Excuse me, Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
sorry, line 30.
30, yes, sir.
Can you quantify the number of days, which that would be the second Friday prior to the election?
That is correct. So you got the Friday, the current law, as we discussed it on Thursday, there's a deadline the Friday before the election.
is
This is
correct.
taking it back one Friday.
One Friday.
Yes, sir.
And so on 5 p.m. on that second Friday, then no ballots shall be mailed or issued. Is that?
No, you can still issue a ballot. In fact, if you read on down, it gives you 3 days, line 32, to issue those ballots. That's your application that needs to be in by 5 o'clock on that Friday.
And what's under the rule? What is the rule on the trying to reissue if if something is there's a rationale for having a new absentee ballot reissue? What's the rule on that on reissuing of an absentee ballot?
So if you have already issued an absentee ballot and it comes back and there is a problem with it, as I think your question goes very similar to what Representative Douglas was asking. There's already a process in place to deal with that situation, and this legislation is not going to affect that. This legislation only affects when you get your application in, not when you have already received a ballot and there's a problem with it. We're not touching that.
Okay.
Any further questions from members of the committee? All righty. We had, as I mentioned, 2 to 3 hours of testimony and otherwise on Thursday when we initially addressed this. The changes that you see before you are at the request of the minority whip so that he could support this and encourage support of it. There is a motion do pass. There is one amendment that was referenced earlier on line 29. After the word absentee, insert the words by mail. On line 29, after the word absentee, the first term absentee, insert the word by mail. Is there, on line 29, the first word is absentee, and after that first word absentee, insert by mail. Is there objection to that amendment? Hearing none, it is in. Now, the question is on the committee substitute as amended. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed? There is one no, and the rest are ayes. The bill passes the rules. Thank you for being here today. We are adjourned. Okay, you get that amendment?
Yeah, I'll get it to the.